when there's two sides to every coin. Then there's a conversation you can join. But I'm an old dog and there's new tricks. And some of my opinions you just can't fix. 'Cause I'm an old man yelling at the sky. I'ma shake my fists at the clouds and cry. Get off my lawn, you snowflake, before I have a meltdown, breakdown, shakedown. 'Cause this is my hometown, so back down, sports clown. It's all just a game, and it's the last down, let down, cowtown. I said it's all just a game. I give the touchdown, the rundown, the lowdown. 'Cause it's over the game, gonna crack down and shut down, the sundown. I said it's all just a game.
Life comes at you fast, kids. How are you? Welcome to Just a Game. I'm me, you're you. If you are joining us on the live stream, our apologies. We're a little tardy today. If this is a podcast version for you, nothing to see here. Move along. I'm me, you're you. You know that. We've got two great guests for you. This day was supposed to be about Snoop Dogg, but that all got messed up. We have to drop it like it's hot. It's all about Daryl Sutter. It's all about the Calgary Flames now. A monumental evening, one might say, in the National Hockey League Stanley Cup playoffs last night. We will touch on that briefly. But the news coming down just before 10 o'clock this morning that the Calgary Flames have relieved Daryl Sutter of his duties. Don Maloney spoke to the media, I want to say a couple hours ago. Doesn't matter. Late in the morning anyway. Thought he was really good. Thought, for what it's worth, this press conference was excellent for Don in many ways. Walked everybody through the process. I, for one, was a little surprised. I suspected that Daryl was coming back for a lot of reasons, tied to ownership, those types of things. But at the end of the day, I think the Calgary Flames are doing exactly what they need to do. And what was said today is exactly what the Calgary Flames need to do. They need to go out and find a general manager, the right general manager, the general manager, and then he should find his coach. Courtesy of our friend Wes Gilbertson, who was on Friday, interviewed 25 players, coaches, training, and prominent agents. I think the agents part is rather important, and I would suggest the agent most prominent in this would be Jonathan Huberdeau's Alan Walsh. Saying all of that, the Calgary Flames are now without a general manager, without a coach, have a president of hockey operations, have candidates for both. I would say Mitch Love, who's handling the Wranglers and has for the last couple of years, formerly of the Saskatoon Blades, is kind of the inside favorite. Couple hours in, I think Ryan Huska belongs there, but external candidates and candidates of the general manager's liking should be considered and will be considered. The general manager itself remains a position that needs to be filled. So with all of that said, an election starting today with the arena on it. Brad Treliving is not coming back. Let's put that one to rest. I thought, again, kudos to Don Maloney. He was asked that if this opened the door for a return to Brad Treliving. He said, nope, clean break on both sides. I'm not surprised by that, but at least that's not kicking around out there. As well, I would, if you watched the Barn Burner earlier today, Rhett and Boomer talked about Jerome McGinley. I'm not focused on Jerome McGinley right now. I'm focused on the GM and then the coach, and then this team being put back together. And I have a couple of players that I want to talk about too. So we got the right show for it. Later on, Ryan Pike, managing editor of FlamesNation, will join us. Gosh, I wonder what they're going to be writing about and talking about. But as we kick off, we are broadcasting live from Treaty 7 territory, and it's an inclusive show for everybody. Everybody is welcome here. But let's get right to it. Ski Cellar Snowboard brings us our guest, skicellarsnowboard.com. 76 years in Calgary. Check out their 3 locations that are open right now. McLeod Trail by Chinook Center, 17th Avenue Southwest, just off of 14th Street, and Bow Ridge Road Northwest. He, like me, bolted, went for greener pastures. I somehow found myself back here where the pastures are still green. But I still consider him a dear friend, but I also consider him one of the sharper young minds, if I can still say that about him. He is going to take that sharp mind and do good with it. But why not utilize him and put him to work today with a very busy Flames news day? Will Nault, formerly of Sportsnet 960, The Fan, and one of my dear favorites, is here. This was a totally different show when I invited you to come on.
Yeah, I bet it was. This is probably not what you had on the on the drawing board.
Not what I was counting on starting this week with. Were you surprised? Like, I was caught completely flat-footed.
Yeah, I was trying to find the right word. I don't know if I was stunned, but I certainly did not expect it.
Well, there was the old you remember this from the Bob Hartley day, when Bob Hartley got fired, who, by the way, don't win the Jack Adams Trophy around here.
Not in Calgary.
not.
I mean, not really in general.
No. But if you want, if you want job security, this isn't the place.
Apparently, it happens everywhere too. Remember, Dwayne Casey won it for the Raptors, and then
the same. But that was the same year. He never even got to come back.
True. It was like weeks later,
right? No, Paul McLean too in Ottawa.
Yep.
That happened to him.
Yep.
The point I guess I was making was with Bob. That was the first time I kind of heard. Am I surprised? Yes. Am I shocked? No. Right?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was too. I didn't expect it to happen, but I think when you look at the entire situation with a wide net, I think you can understand. And look, none of us are in the room. None of us know the day-to-day. But if you watch those exit meetings that every player held, you look at the body language of certain players, even the body language of just staff and management around the Calgary Flames. I just don't know what that atmosphere was like on a day-to-day basis. And, I think it's tough because you have, an organization that's gone through a lot of coaches, but I think you also know that this is a move that you had to make if you want to go in the right direction. And it's funny, you mentioned the prominent agents thing earlier. You know who else is thinking about?
Who?
Nazem Kadri's agent is Darren Ferris, who, if I'm not mistaken, is also Sam Bennett's agent. So there's a little bit of history there.
And we can get into that. But no, the point, and I can't remember if I said it on this show or if I said it on another show. The point I was making was it felt very Scott Borish when I saw that comment today. That I
100%.
Talk to the players, talk to the coaches, and I talked to prominent agents. Mm-hmm. And we know that in baseball, Scott Boras has that, bigger role to play than what traditionally agents have, right?
Yeah, and I don't think there's anybody in hockey that has a bigger, whether you like him or hate him. I think nobody, if you asked an average hockey fan for one name of an agent, a lot of people I think would come up with the name Alan Walsh, and a big reason for that is all his activity on social media.
Yeah, but and
just in terms of your, the public eye and how you want to come across, I think maybe probably a guy you don't want to piss off.
Well, you signed his client to the biggest contract ever here.
Yep.
And it's just kicking in, and it's 10 million plus, and it was 116 points last year, and it's 50 points off this year. He has to be part of the solution, right?
100%.
As you look at this lineup, he has to be part of that solution. Kadri has to be part of that solution. Weegar has to be part of that solution. You've made those decisions. And again, I'm not bringing it up as a problem. Quite honestly, I'm rather impressed because I tell me what you're doing. I thought Don Maloney told us what he was doing today. Yep. I thought, good, perfect. I did not like the press conference around Brad Treliving's when he exited. It felt off kilter. It felt like, a little bit, I don't know, just wrong. It just didn't feel
genuine,
not
sincere,
genuine.
Accurate.
It just felt like it was a dry run.
Transparent.
No, it was all of that. It just was off kilter. Off kilter. Today felt like I'm the president of hockey operations. This is what we're going to do. We've listened. We've listened.
It felt a little more direct, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I didn't expect it at all. I really did not. Yeah. And I think, you mentioned that right before you brought me on, you mentioned the comment about the fact that Maloney addressed it today. He was asked about Brad Treliving and said, no, we're going to clean from both. And I think you have to. I think Brad did a lot of good things for this organization. If you look at his tenure over 9 years as a whole, I don't think you can argue that he did more bad than good. I think he did more good than bad for the Calgary Flames.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he did more good than bad over his 9 years. And he went through a lot of coaches, but I don't know, a lot of that was his fault. And some of that was out of his control. You know, the Bill Peters one, I think we can have a conversation about that along, another day or whatever. But so didn't expect it because this is not in the Calgary Flames history. And I think, I don't know if you look at it from the outside, and again, not to say the outside makes the decisions for them, but I do think there seemed to be this almost like this tidal wave of momentum towards a potential coaching change in Calgary. And that wave finally crested.
Well, the whole thing felt awkward.
Yes.
Like everything felt
100%.
awkward.
And then, like you said, going back to that True Living exit press conference with Don Maloney, that's exactly where it started.
It all felt awkward. Now, I'm not naive. I know how the business works. Every year you're going to have customers that are happy and customers that aren't happy. You never renew season tickets at 100%, right? Your renewals are probably in the 80s. So obviously you're going to lose people, but it just felt a little more palatable, not palatable, but palpable out there that there was frustration in the fan base. People were sharing responses on social media, and that's what social media has become. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to make this to be a mountain out of a molehill, but it sure feels like the Flames listened a little bit to that. And credit Murray Edwards, because, it's easy to say, well, Murray, we never hear from Murray and it's his coach and this and that. This is, clearly they went through the process. This is the decision. I'm wondering, what's different this time? Jay Feaster became the GM after Darryl. He got to hire Bob Hartley. He could have, and I'm not saying they interviewed him or anything like that. I'm just saying the timeline lined up. There was a coach in Syracuse named John Cooper that could have been a candidate. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
What do you do this time? Elliot Friedman is I'm hard pressed to think of a better insider in hockey than Elliot Friedman. And he's talked openly the last couple of years about services, search firms. Do you go outside and bring a search firm in? Do you go outside and bring an executive headhunting crew in to come in and do this? Or do you continue to do the traditional way, which is we'll just take care of it internally? We have the staff, we have Don, we'll do it that way. I see value in both sides. I do. I go back to my original point. I think the best candidate for this job is Craig Conroy. I think Craig Conroy deserves this job. I think but that's me. That's not a headhunting firm. That's not somebody who's in it interviewing or anything. This is a friend of mine that I think has paid his dues, is smart, is bright, and is passionate. Let's give him a chance. Having said that, I don't think you need to rush at this point.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel the exact same way in a lot of what you just talked about in terms of the GM search and the coaching search for this organization. I've said it a lot of times. I think when you look at the way this organization over the last 2 decades has gone about their business, why are you copying things from the past? Like, what sticks out? You're like, oh, that worked really well. Let's do that again. So in terms of taking a wide scope and interviewing every single candidate, whether they be internal or external, I think you absolutely have to go that way because whatever you've done in the past, I'm sorry, it hasn't worked. So I think you need to take that approach. And I don't know if you feel the same way, Rob. I think the NHL is probably the worst out of all the sports in terms of the retread hires. Like, I think they have to do a better job. And this is not in Calgary. And maybe it's gotten better the last 4 or 5 years, but in general, it's always okay. Coach X or GM X gets fired, and all of a sudden we're anointing candidate X or candidate Y. And I think,
and I don't want to I don't want to turn this into a personal vendetta or take a shot at anybody. But I will say, when the news broke this morning, I was listening to a prominent hockey program to hear what Elliot had to say, and the host said, well, maybe, Bruce Boudreau. And I'm like, oh,
Exactly my point.
Gabby's a nice guy. Don't get me wrong.
Well, what's he won? Why does he get the number
but
one
he's
crack?
a favorite of a whole bunch of media guys.
Because he's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
And he's fun to talk to, and he's great on a media panel.
And it didn't work in Vancouver for many of the same reasons it didn't work for Daryl here.
And as I say, I mean, again, great guy. He's got a great regular season record. And I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but what's he won? Like, why is he the top candidate? What's he won?
I'll tell you, okay. I will say something that I truly believe. I am not saying this for.
And I'm not, by the way, just quickly, I'm not saying winning has to be the only thing that you look for in a coach, but how many times is Bruce Boudreau going to get a crack before somebody else gets one? Is, I guess, maybe what I was saying.
No, I know what you're saying about the retread part. I was just processing the NFL. I'm not sure if the NFL isn't.
They might be top of the mountain when it comes to the worst.
Similar.
Yeah, very
But
similar.
I'll tell you this. You got my attention when the Raptors are reportedly in on Becky Hammond.
Yep.
Right?
That's what I mean.
That has my attention.
I think they need to go elsewhere. And that's not, and to go back to your original point.
But I was just going to say, Will, the name that I will bring up that I think should be interviewed, and you fire away, try your worst, aim hard. I'm not hard to find. I'm a big fat guy and I'm slow. I would be interviewing, I'll tell you right now, I would be interviewing Carla McLeod. I would. I
don't think you have anything to lose by doing it, honestly.
She has proven on the international stage, and it's been shown to the world about culture and treating. We had Billy Jaffe on the program a while ago, and we were talking about coaching today and coaching, the way it used to be. And he said, the difference now is you talk to the player, not at the player. And we have proof. Here's the other thing. I was at a coaching event where Carla McLeod was presenting, and she was asked if she wanted to coach in the NHL, and she said, no, I would rather coach the highest level of women. So, but what I'm trying to say is I think that's your process. I think if you talk to her, then you are truly talking to everybody available, right?
Yeah, and I think by talking to a bunch of different people, you lose nothing. Like, I think it's great to get different perspectives and views about your roster, your organization, how you do business. How would you do this if you took things over? I don't think it hurts at all. And, even if you kind of set it up, say you're going down the road with Carla McLeod and she kind of has the understanding from the beginning, hey, I don't want to coach in the NHL, but I'm happy to talk to you guys. I'm happy to, show you my ideas, the way I build teams, the way I build culture, all that type of stuff. And I don't think it hurts you at all. I really don't. And you're right. I think the results for Carla specifically speak for themselves. And you look at what she's done with Czechia, the last two Olympics and World Championships.
They had never won medals before,
No.
and now they've won medals back to
back. Yeah.
And it's all been done and out in front of everybody can see it. Having said that, the Flames have two really interesting internal candidates, Ryan Huska and Mitch Love.
And I think for a lot of people, whether you're a fan of this team or you're a national media member or you are a hockey diehard fan, I don't think you can look at this Flames organization and disagree with those two guys maybe being at the top of the list. But that's not to say there's an external candidate that should be right there in the running. And, going back to the original of this conversation, I think you have to talk to everybody, but there's no secret. I mean, you don't have to look very far to see results with both those guys. And I know that Huska has not been a head coach in the NHL, but he's been with this team long enough that he knows a lot of the personnel. Certainly has had a view and a bird's eye view a lot of times too about the way the last couple of years have gone down. I don't think that hurts. And then for Mitch Love, I mean, the resume is right there for you to look at. And what he's done the last 2 years in the American Hockey League is nothing short of brilliant. And I think if you're looking to graduate a lot of players, and I'm not saying that the next 2 years, all of a sudden there's 12 Wranglers in the lineup, but I think if you're trying to go with continuity, you're trying to, play the same structure, both the American Hockey League and the National Hockey League level, I think you have to look at Mitch Love. And I think that he's right there in terms of, you're always looking, we just talked about retreads. You're always looking for that next kind of, coach. And we talk about all the turnover here. Mitch Love can come here and be a coach for 5-6 years. You think you would love that if you're the Calgary Flames?
If Mitch Love comes here and is a coach for 5 or 6 years, he'll become the all-time leader in games coached by the Calgary Flames.
Bingo.
Which is, and so that so we're in agreement there. Let's draw this back a little bit. And I want to bring you into the conversation that I have been having with different people. And, this week we're going to have Peter Marr on. This week we'll have Eric Tahachuk, and I've talked to them a little bit about this.
Thank God I'm not following them.
No. Well, no. But I go back to, let's go back to last night. Last night, arguably one of the biggest upsets in the history of the National Hockey League took place in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Points-wise, all those sort of things. Nobody had ever had a better regular season than the Boston.
Believe it was the widest discrepancy in points in league history.
Right.
In the playoffs.
Right. And the Panthers win in overtime. They win the series 4-3. But to me, it's the guys that were around the game winner. Sam Bennett and Matt Tkachuk. Matt Tkachuk, you can make the case, would have left anyway. He's gone to Florida. He's not paying taxes, all those sort of things. Mm-hmm. I believe building. I believe being safe and in the middle all the time. And I believe the coaching might have cost you that player. I think at some point you have to address, the Calgary Flames have to address and come up with a plan for drafting a player from anywhere in the world and being able to keep them. Just because they're American players. And I've heard this isn't a new thing. I've heard this with Johnny Gaudreau. You heard it with Johnny Gaudreau. We heard it, we heard it with Matt Tkachuk. We watched it in action with Adam Fox and all of these sort of things.
Yep.
But the Calgary Flames need to prove to people that they can draft, develop, and keep really good players. We have not seen this team draft number one overall. The team up the road did it 4 times in 6 years or whatever it is. Hell, you and I were hosting the draft lottery show for Connor McDavid. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget it. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
And the rest, as they say, is history. That has not happened. That lightning bolt has never struck this team. You can make a case that in many ways, Matt Tkachuk might be the best drafted player by the Calgary Flames. Now, it still has to finish, and there's Nieuwendyk and there's Fleury in there. They didn't draft again. In terms of them
actually calling the name,
for them, actually, right?
Yeah,
and they weren't able to keep him. That's a problem. That is an issue. I go back to, you were, knee-high to a grasshopper, but I go back to 20 years ago when the number one problem in this league was the Canadian Equalization Fund. The Canadian teams had to get propped up because of the dollar. And then came the salary cap, and guess what? Then they got back. It seems to me that we're getting back to this situation where the Canadian teams are not able to keep the players again. And it's not the same, but it's not that different either, right? Like, no. We could talk about Winnipeg. That was an ugly, ugly situation this past weekend, right?
Yeah. And even the situation in Toronto, it's McCabe. I think Elliot was talking about it before they got him at the deadline. He had every Canadian team on his no trade except Toronto.
100%. And Rich Winter up in Edmonton, Gio's agent, and I believe Manji Ipani's?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
He's got a current Flame. But I believe he has said that most teams or most players list all the Canadian teams on the no trades.
Yeah.
And you had Oliver Ekman-Larsson's agent go on when he got traded to Vancouver, go on Vancouver radio, say players don't want to play in Canada.
Yeah.
That needs to be addressed. Like, the Flames need to be in a fighting position that if, they should be credited. This was part of my argument with Ryan last week. There was a couple of articles about the mess, quote unquote, the mess that Tree left. And I'm like, what mess? Anyway, I can see their point, but to me, it's like,
there's a lot of contracts there for sure. But
that's every NHL team.
Yeah. And I think
that's they're all looking for salary cap relief. They all want,
I think the trouble is Calgary being right against it without doing anything so far, which is going to be a difficult problem to address going forward. But I don't know if it's something that all of a sudden you look at and say,
but
I don't want to be the GM of the Flames because of that.
See, I'm of the belief that this team underachieved. I'm the belief.
No,
and
for sure.
Maloney said it today.
I mean, look at
you could come back with this team and win next year.
17 OT losses.
Oh, I know.
I mean, realistically, I know that it's you can play the coulda, shoulda, woulda, coulda game forever, but you turn 4 of those into wins and you're in the playoffs. And I know that
Matt Phillips.
Yeah.
It's Matt Phillips. It starts and ends with Matt Phillips for me. And people who watch this program know, and again, I'm not right. That's my opinion. It starts and ends with Matt Phillips. You did not give Matt Phillips an honest opportunity here in the National Hockey League, right? Third team to suffer 31 goal losses. So you're saying, Rob, that we should have put all of our hopes and dreams in a rookie. Kid did it last Friday. Who scored the overtime winner? Who scored it? Right? Do you not go there? You have that look in your eye that I've seen before when you're letting the old man rant. You're going to just let me run out of air, and then I'm going to tire myself out, and then you're going to pounce. I've seen this movie before from you.
I piss a lot of people. I don't think Matt Phillips is an NHLer, but
why? And this is good. Thank you. This is good.
I think he is your prime, really, really good American Hockey League player, but
Darren Haydar,
right there,
Locke. Yeah. There's a bunch of them.
The list goes on and on. And I think if Matt Phillips wanted to go to Europe, I think he would have a hell of a career for 10 years.
Yeah. You don't think he's Paul Byron?
I just think he's right there.
You don't think he's Paul Byron?
No, I don't.
See, I remember watching Paul Byron at the American League level in Abbotsford, and I've watched Matt Phillips at the American League level in Stockton, and I think Matt Phillips is a better player.
Okay.
I do. I think Matt Phillips does not get enough credit for going to places that he needs to go to, that he has no problem getting dirty. He has I think on a team that no longer has Johnny Gaudreau, don't give me the size thing. I think he can do that. But on a team that was so lacking offense, I mean, he played 2 games and he had impact. He was on the ice in that Toronto game for a power play goal. You know what I'm saying?
And he does have the tool that I think everyone looks for in today's game, which is speed. And
I completely grant you, Will, 100% grant you that he may never play in the National Hockey League. I will grant you that. But I've watched him, and to me, I just don't know why you would say no.
Here's what I will say. I do think I'm not going to change my opinion. I don't think he's an NHL player, but I will say this. This is where I will agree with you. I think you lose nothing by giving him a chance.
Correct. That's legitimate chance.
And that's not to say, come up and play 7 games and play 643 a night with,
So I'm listening to the Don Maloney press conference today, listening to the voices who are asking questions, going, I wonder who will read their phone right now if I send them a text to ask, because I wanted the question asked. Who'd you
text?
I didn't. I just don't trust any of them.
Wes would have done it.
You think what? No. I just don't trust that Wes was looking at his phone.
No, he will.
He was looking at his phone during.
What about Vickers? Vickers, what else are you doing? He'll look at his phone.
I don't know if he was doing any. I don't even know if he was there. I never heard him. Right? I'm assuming he was. My point being is, would you? And I think I have your answer. We all assume that he's going to leave as a Group 6.
Yes.
Right? Why would he stay? Would you offer Matt Phillips a 1-year league minimum one way?
No, because I don't think you can guarantee him a spot on this team. I think this team has too many contracts that are way too expensive that they can't afford.
By the way, I'm just putting up Phillips stats. Just Gav's the best. Gav's always supporting me, so
he's looking out for you. He's looking out for you.
Oh, sorry, he didn't get a point on that power play. He was on the power play, never got a point there.
No, got a penalty though.
Right.
No, I think going back to the Calgary Flames, and you mentioned the article or the piece that said True Living left his team in a mess or whatever. Yeah. I think the contract structure and the way this team is built right now today, unless you're trading numerous vets, I just don't think you can make that guarantee to vets.
I think you're moving Vladar out.
Yes, I do too.
I think you're moving Vladar out to make room for Wolf.
I think the same thing.
I think I think you had 3, possibly 4. Gav, if you can put that the cap friendly, or is it cap friendly now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there you go.
So you're losing Lewis, you're losing Richie, you're losing Lucci.
And you're not bringing any of them back.
No.
Right? So there's 3 spots.
And they've already signed Dewar.
Right?
Yeah.
So the other one I'm interested in bringing back is Stetcher. But we did find out today that Shillington's looks like
I did see that.
So that's a positive.
Frank Seravalli saying that the Flames do expect him to be back.
I think you got to have room for Pelche, right?
So if you're bringing Shillington back, how do you make room for Stetcher?
I don't know if you do.
Or is that a 1-for-1 kind of replacement?
Well,
is that how you see it?
Not 1-for-1, because I don't.
Well, he's out in.
You have 7 players next year that are due contracts. So you have to deal with some of those now.
Yep.
My assumption is, as great a story as this would be, I don't think that Michael Backlund and Elias Lindholm go arm in arm into the office and go, good, we're staying. Let's get an extension done.
I don't disagree.
I think you're probably going to see some space created. You probably have, and I think the other part of this, and we haven't really talked about the Darryl part, but Rhett brought it up, and Wes brought it up, and some other people have brought it up, that it's real. And I had coffee with Peter Marr yesterday, and he said it: easy to fire one guy than 20.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
which is what they just did today. Unless they start moving out some bodies. There may be some guys that just aren't coming back, right? No, and I think you have to, as much as we talked about how, this team, if you bring them back, you can win with them. Yeah, I don't think it's crazy
you can't bring them back the way they're constructed. You have to add to it.
You can bring back a good chunk of it, but you can't look at your fan base and honestly say, oh, we're bringing everybody back because we believe in them. No, you're going to have to make some changes, but what those changes look like and the depth of them, that's very curious. Now, I asked this question only because I believe this player is worth more, not because I believe that that's what I would do. But in terms of those two guys, if you're trying to be competitive next season and look after your salary structure, can you trade Elias Lindholm and be competitive next year?
Well, I don't know what you're getting back.
Do you think, I guess what I'm asking you is there enough in a trade with Lindholm?
I think
Lindholm's
contract.
You're maybe not getting the same player back, but can you get something similar where the Flames have done it before and they can kind of shuffle things and make it work?
Well, I think Elias Lindholm has been 2 people in the last 2 years.
Yes. He's on an absolute bargain.
He's on an absolute bargain. He was probably the center, the driving force on the best line in hockey last year.
Agreed.
And this year, I think he was very good defensively, but he just was not offensively impactful.
Wasn't engaged.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but I think there were stretches where he wasn't himself.
And so if you want to call A Lindholm 2 years ago and B Lindholm, you nearly made the playoffs with B Lindholm.
Right.
You can replace B Lindholm.
Right.
You couldn't replace A Lindholm.
Correct.
If you can get A Lindholm back, you sign him to a long-term deal.
I don't disagree.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would do I think I would do the exact same thing. So I think you probably go into next year without signing either guy and maybe kind of go down that road if you come back with both, or you make the decision and trade Backlund this summer. And because I think you're going to have to move a big money deal out because you have to do something, whether it's Phillips or anybody else you're graduating. I think you want to have a little bit of room, right? You don't want to be right against it as you enter September, whatever, on day 1 of camp.
Yes. And I think part of that is, who do you want to graduate?
Yeah.
You want to graduate Wolf.
And is there more in that list, or is it just him?
It depends on how you look at it. Are Dewar and Pelche graduates? Right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm only saying Matty Phillips because I just have beaten that horse. But to me, that was the problem that I had with Darryl.
Mm-hmm. I don't disagree.
I just felt like I want to know. I want to answer your question. You don't think he is? I think Darryl didn't think he was, or he would have. Right? Daryl's not a dumb guy.
Yeah.
I just think
he also didn't think so with Valimaki. How'd that turn out? Right? Like, so that's why you have to.
Well, let's let that one ruminate a little bit.
But he had a good season
on a bad team,
which makes it kind of a little bit more impressive.
Yeah, but we had. Does it? We had, but you and I worked through some seasons where this was a bad team and you had guys with good years. So are you good on a bad team?
I'm with you. Let's not jump the gun and call Valimaki a slam dunk top 4 guy for the next decade.
But I think I don't think it was the right play. I don't think it was asset management.
No.
And I think
I guess that's what I was getting at. To force him out of town.
And that goes back to the GM.
Yeah.
I'm not kicking anybody on their way out here, but the one thing you can say about Brad Treliving was he gave his coaches a lot of leeway when it came to player decisions. And I go all the way back to Berchi getting moved out. Bob didn't like him. He moved him, right? And that's okay. And you can't. And then 3 months later, it's like, we have no skill on the wing. Well, you had it, but your coach wouldn't develop it. And to me, part of coaching in the National Hockey League, Don Maloney brought it up. I keep going back to the presser today, but Don Maloney brought it up today about the age of this league and how prepared these players are. They're younger. It's a young league. It has to be a young league, right? It has to be. So you have to start developing more at the NHL level. Daryl, I can tell you exactly Daryl's philosophy. First year pro, you learn how to be a pro in the American Hockey League. Second year, you come in, you get a couple of games in the NHL, so you see what that's about. Third year, you get an up, you get a down, you get an up, and you stay. David Moss, Eric Nystrom. I don't say that because I am old. I am old. But those were the guys that did. Eric Nystrom, people forget, was a first-round pick. He was a first-round pick. And that's exactly how he got into the National Hockey League. And that's always worked for Daryl. And the league has changed. They need to give, you can't have a general manager bring up a young guy and just sit him in the press box because the coach won't play him, but won't send him back because he wants to prove a point. Right. And quite honestly, part of this list we were talking about, who goes and part of what you're also hearing is that, quite honestly, as much as it might have been Daryl against the room might have been split too, right? There may have been some guys in that room that weren't helping the situation either. So this is
I mean, let's be honest. You don't have to look very far. Like, this team has gone through a lot of coaches, and for a lot of the nucleus of this team, yes, there's been some bodies that have gone in and out, but a lot of it has stayed. So yeah, I don't know if we can put it all on the coach. Your point about the room being split, I don't think it's a bad one, because you look at the evidence and what's happened with this history of this team the last 10, 15 years, and it's been a lot of, carousel with the coaching. So,
well, honestly, it really, really has. Ryan Pike's coming up in a little while, and as a matter of fact, he's sitting in the waiting room right now. So we'll apologize. He's on deck. We'll apologize to him. Hopefully,
hi, Pike.
So he's mad at me.
Why?
Yeah, because last week when the whole arena thing went down,
can we put him up? Let's get him up right now.
Well, I don't think we should do that.
Why?
I think we should just talk about
explain himself.
No, he doesn't have any explaining to do. I'm the one that has explaining to do.
So you're doing it now before he comes
Yes, because the news on the building came out last Tuesday, right? There's a lot to digest.
And you didn't call him.
No, I did. I texted him while he was writing.
Pike, I know the truth.
And he's trying to write, and I'm picking an argument with him over text. And I keep texting him stuff, and I'm poking and I'm poking and I'm poking. And finally he goes,
I'm trying to write.
I'm writing. And I go, oh, yeah, you are. So I wasn't being a really good teammate last week. I was being a suck.
And yet he's agreed to come back on your show.
Well, he's kind of contractually obligated.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Given the choice, he would have walked away a long time ago. And I don't blame him. Do you care to opine on the building?
I think it's interesting.
Interesting. I think it's interesting too.
No, the fact that hey. I mean,
yeah.
Seems like every time around, it's always tied to an election, huh? Can I get buy votes for 330 million, please, for 200, Alex?
I like this project, Will. Like this of all the projects.
It's good. And I love the community rink. I love it all. Going all the way back to Calgary.
Hold on now.
Oh.
You can love the community rink. It's not big enough.
Why? What's the problem?
It should be 5,000 seats.
What is it?
It's 1,000.
Oh, yeah. It should be 5,000.
Right? Because the Hitmen could play there.
I was going to say it should be 5,000 or 7,000, and the Hitmen should play in it.
Right. And then if you and God love if a women's professional team comes here.
Beautiful. And you could,
right?
You could charge them, but you could put the basketball team there too.
You could. Yeah.
Get a little cash.
Yeah, sure. Who doesn't like cash, right?
Cash money.
Who doesn't like cash?
But yeah, I think it'll be it's an interesting way to try and win votes in the city of Calgary, I guess.
I don't like it. Like, I like the project.
It's ugly.
Huh?
In terms of using that, it's ugly.
Yeah, but at least she said it.
It's true.
Right? That's
not hiding.
There's
not hiding.
There's nothing she has done that I'm a fan of, except that she was so honest about it.
Oh, no, I'm buying your votes. Yeah.
No, God bless you. Thank you.
Guys,
please.
I'm not gonna I'm buying your votes. I'm not hiding it.
Thank you. God bless. God bless. I like the vision of it. I like what it looks like. I mean, with no pictures, I'm still mad there's no pictures. I need pictures. But I like the vision
renderings.
There's no renderings. Okay. But you're cool with it?
I am cool with it. I think it'll be awesome. And look, at this city's been trying to build one for 20 years. I don't think it's any secret that we need one. We desperately need one. I think it'll be awesome. I think
the location's right.
I think the location is prime. I know that this city has talked about many different ones, whether that be Balzac, whether that be west side of downtown. But I think this is the best spot for it. And if this project does get the green light,
who talked about Balzac?
I think it's good. Well, I think there was a lot of people that talked about Cross Iron Mills. Is there not?
I never did.
Well, okay. If you didn't, then we're not talking about this show.
The only thing I remember out at Balzac was, you're too young to remember this. Michael Federick and Fred Fateri. They were going to build
young.
They were going to build an NFL stadium out at Balzac. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
Okay. Well, you're young. You are compared to me. Fair. I mean, you're legally, you can drink and drive and,
not together. Not together.
Oh, no, I didn't say.
Not together.
No, I meant come.
What has this program become?
Uh-oh. We just muted a mic. Do you see that too?
Yeah, it's come up every time I speak. It comes up. Or
I don't know.
But anyways,
I don't know.
I leave you for a little bit.
I leave
this
you just
show
for a little
turns
bit.
into that.
All right. So you walked away. You threw your arms up in the air and said, "I'm done with this. I cannot put up with you creeps anymore.
Out.
I hate everyone."
That's exactly.
And I'm going to live as a hermit.
It's my speech verbatim,
right?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
You nailed it.
What are you doing these days?
I'm doing lots of different things, Rob.
Are you?
I'm a chef.
Are you?
No.
Okay.
I'm a chef at home though.
Doesn't
do
count.
Like to cook.
Doesn't count.
No, I'm doing lots of fun stuff.
Okay.
But we will. I'll make you this promise. We will do a very fun career reveal on your next program.
On the next program.
The next time I'm here.
When is that?
Whenever you want me here.
Wednesday.
Let's do
I have a space Wednesday. I might have a space after this one because I don't know if Pike's going to stay. I wouldn't blame him if he ditched it and ran.
Well, I don't think he's listening anymore.
No, he's listening. I can tell he's writing notes.
I'm writing, Rob.
It's the Nation's Network's first HR complaint. That's what it is. I know.
Because you're holding him up.
Well, he's trying to write, and I'm like, come on. I'm asking you a question. Answer my question. And he's like, I'm trying to write a story. Oh, sorry.
Fine. He's trying to write. I was just going to say this summer when you have less exciting things to do and you have time to kill, I will be here.
Hey. Less. Okay. Sorry, Ryan just chimed in. Not our first HR complaint.
Wow.
Okay. I guess I'm up on multiple charges again.
Yeah, not your first.
Okay, so we'll bring you back. You'll make a career.
Yeah, I'll talk about it on here.
Okay. You will?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Before anybody else? Will you reveal it on this program?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
For you.
You're the best. Thanks for coming in.
It's great to see you.
It's great to see half of you.
It's finally, I've seen this.
Oh, I know what I want before you go.
Oh.
No.
No, I gotta go.
Can you share the story about Tree?
Because, yes. I would love to.
Because Wes shared it too. And this is nothing to do about the job or anything to do. Just I want people to understand the caliber of this man.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I put this on Twitter the day that the news came out that he was not going to come back. And I've been around the Flames, obviously, since I was hired by the Fan in late 2012. And, 8-9 years going down to the rink and down to the basement. Obviously, Tree was there for almost every single one of them. A lot of talk and going past through him, talked to him on the air a number of times, talked to him in the hallway a number of times, lots of great times on and off the air with him. And certainly just to get the scope of the man he is, I don't think it's any secret. Anybody who listened to the radio for any amount of time I was on, for a good 5-6 years, my mom had a very lengthy battle with cancer. She ultimately lost that battle in 2019 in July and got a random number. And this would have been 3-4 days after it happened. Random number, and didn't have the number saved in my phone, and just said, "Hey, Will, it's Brad Treliving," and it was just a very long and very personal. He shared things about his personal life with his family, things that he'd gone through before, and I don't know who's listening out there who's lost a parent, but especially one when you've been young. I was 28 when my mom died, and when you lose a parent at that age, it's like you're lost. And for somebody of that stature who you think just walks by you in the hall and probably wouldn't pick you out of a police line in the future, to get a text like that and just to get a personal story and just, at a time where you could use anything to lift up, and, the Flames sent me flowers and they did a lot of good things for me. But that text right there, just said everything about the man. And, he was one of those guys too, that when you asked him a question in a big group setting, was always a guy that would pick out your name, and not everyone does that. Yep. And, just all class all the time. And I have all the time in the world for Brad Treliving, and I hope he lands on his feet. I know he will. And whenever he wants to work again, he will.
Perfect. Okay. So big career reveal for you later this summer.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're making it sound like it's exciting. It's not that.
It is exciting.
Okay.
It is exciting.
All right.
Thanks for coming on, Pat.
Hey, thanks for having me. Sorry, Pike.
Oh, he'll be okay. Will Nault, everybody, brought to you by the Ski Sellers Snowboard, skisellersnowboard.com. Not just skis and snowboards on sale right now. They'll keep you warm and dry too. And hey, it's nice now. It's not going to be nice next winter. Why not get ahead of it? We are live in the Oodle Noodle studio. We bring the heat. Butter chicken, mac and cheese, kung pao noodles, Bangkok pad thai classic, vegetarian and gluten-friendly options. Pick up and delivery at 2 locations, 1244 17th Avenue Southwest, 105 Main Street North in Airdrie. And what has been a weird and wacky kind of day. Not that our next guest is weird and wacky, but he can appreciate that kind of day. That wasn't me, folks. No, that's not me making that noise.
By the way, I just got a text from the UCP party, so they must be listening. They must be listening.
Yeah. So,
hi, this is Sam from the Conservative Party of Canada.
Oh, that's not the UCP.
Well, that's the
Feds.
Sorry,
that's the Feds.
They're all coming after you.
They're all after you. Don't worry about it, dude. Ski Sellers Snowboard, skisellersnowboard.com, 76 years. Late this afternoon, but that's on me. Ryan Pike, the managing editor of FlamesNation, joins us. Mr. Pike, good afternoon to you, sir.
My goodness, an awful lot of buildup to Will disclosing he's becoming an interpretive dancer.
Well, yes.
I can still hear you.
Thanks for spoiling it.
Now you don't have to listen in July.
We were going to move everything, and we were going to allow him to come prancing through the door and have a wide angle shot. But Pike,
it's important to use our platform to give deserving people some exposure. So,
yes.
Don't you want to keep this YouTube license? Don't you want to keep that?
I don't know how this works. I don't know how.
Just thinking, if you had me dancing interpretively on it, it might be a good way to lose it.
It's our salute to analytics. Here it comes. So I don't even know why I went there.
What a weird last 2 weeks, eh?
Oh my, isn't it? Like this should be you and I talking about the building. And that's the notes I have, right? Because we have not had a chance, other than my apologies to you. Come on, Ryan, I want to know this. Rob, I'm trying to write an article.
And I had to, because of the way, this is not a knock at all at the fine people of the city of Calgary. Behind the scenes, a small army of people have been shepherding this monstrosity through basically since 2013 to varying levels of success. But they give you a package, and they basically take probably 8 years of work and cram it into 6 pages. And of course they can't put everything in. So, sure. And then half of our questions, we ask the mayor things, we ask John Bean things, we ask the premier things. And the answer to a lot of it is, we'll see what happens when the agreements are done, which is a deeply unsatisfactory answer. Sure, when you really want to turn things over in your head. So
right.
It was a fun day.
It was a day. Today is a day where you, and we use the Bob Hartley, surprised, yes, shocked, no. What about today's news?
Surprised, yes, to a certain extent, because it seemed from the outside like, okay, they made their choice. When Brad Treliving decides, okay, I'm out, it feels like, okay, they made their choice. And then when Don Maloney 2 weeks ago does his press conference, and when he's asked very bluntly, hey, what's happened to Daryl? And he goes, we'll see. That was interesting, because they had the opportunity. Like, how many of these kind of press conferences have we seen where the new GM, the old GM, whoever's using the title GM gives a full-throated defense of their coach, and you go, okay, that makes sense. He has a contract. That makes sense to me.
Right.
So the fact that they gave him his walking papers before his extension even kicked in. I think it doesn't kick in officially till July 1.
Yep.
That's interesting to me because it is a ownership group that is, as they should be, loath to give people money to not do stuff for them, giving the guy money to not do stuff for them. And so that was probably the most interesting part of it. But it certainly makes a lot of things make sense in hindsight, eh?
Yeah, I think so. I think I go back to the fall, really, where, Brad made the most out of the summer that he did. He got some players back. Daryl, obviously, we know he can coach, and they had a good run, regular season. You guys both deserve extensions. Here they are. And Daryl takes his and Brad doesn't take his. Right. But at the time, sure, ownership thought these are our two guys moving forward. We're good. Right. And here we are 10 months later, and neither one are here.
Yeah, it's at a certain level, I tweeted this earlier. It certainly kind of has those 2002 Greg Gilbert, Mark Savard vibes, doesn't it? Where, Craig Button, and he's gone on record saying that this was, he didn't handle this particularly well in retrospect. But, you have Greg Gilbert and Mark Savard butting heads for months and months and months. Yep. And then you trade the player, and then a couple weeks later, you fire the coach anyway. Yep. So you end up with
a good point.
Neither of the pieces you really wanted to have. And, granted, I mean, they turned Mark Savard into, a punchline of a prospect by the name of Ruslan Zanulin, who played 0 games in North America in his life. But, it is what it is. And I think you could say that they've learned some lessons from the past, or at least you hope they have. But I mean, this is going to be, as much as we talked about, last summer being a seismically important summer. Johnny Gaudreau walks from free agency. Sean Monahan gets jettisoned out with a first-round pick to clear cap space. They make the big trade with Florida. They sign Huberdeau. They sign Weegar. They sign Kadri. It really felt like a change in the guard on the ice. This summer could be up there with maybe the summer of 2000 in terms of, it's the first time in 23 years they've had a no GM and no coach.
Yep.
And they have the ability to chart the course for the next 23 years based on the decisions they make over the next 2 months.
I am okay. I want to do this in pieces. Let's start with the piece this morning. I am really impressed with Don Maloney today. I thought Don Maloney had an excellent press conference.
Yeah. Granted, I like Don. I think Don's really well spoken. I think the emotionality of Brad's departure 2 weeks ago was still very evident on his face. I think he was wearing it. And I think, when you have someone, people are well aware of the history between Brad Treliving and Don Maloney. Brad got his first job in the National Hockey League working for the Coyotes under Maloney. Maloney, really groomed him as a hockey ops guy. And there's a lot of, Brad's fingerprints on Maloney and vice versa. And when someone you are that close with decides, I'm not feeling it, I got to go, even if you understand why they're doing it, the first time you have to sit and talk about it is tough. So from a human element, I completely get it. And I was completely willing. I thought he was articulate, or at least as articulate as he could reasonably expect it to be in that kind of emotional situation. I thought he was great today in terms of laying out a lot of different things, talking about next steps really clearly, dropping some news that Oliver Shillington is expected to be back, which, I think there was some whispers about that based on Oliver's sudden appearances on Instagram when he hadn't really posted since July of last year. But, I think the fan base could have used some good news. And I think the Oliver news is landing very nicely with the fan base. But, I thought he was really good at sort of just laying things out without airing any dirty laundry in public. So I think that the press conference was exactly what I think the Flames and the media and the fan base wanted and needed it to be.
That's a great way of putting it. What they needed it to be, because it was a guy in charge who laid out a case and then answered the questions. And I wanted to bring up one piece, Ryan, and you've been a little bit more in the business than I have been of late. So it caught me, was the comment about, I talked to 25 players, coaching staff, and the prominent agents, which has to be Alan Walsh, right? Has to be Alan Walsh.
There's a few. I imagine like Noah Hannafin's represented by a CAA with Pat Brisson. Brisson. I'm gonna get it wrong, Pat. I apologize. It's Brisson.
Oh, but Pat Brisson, yeah.
Yeah, Pat Brisson. I imagine JP Barry, perhaps. Alan Walsh, Darren Ferris. Pretty much if your contract is up in the next year or two, I guarantee you that, Don Maloney probably at least sent you an email or a text and said, hey, you got 5 minutes, because that's the kind of thing you need to know about. I mean, you need to control what you can control. I mean, if you're Don Maloney and you're trying to make the Flames or enable your new GM to make the Flames the best hockey team they can be, there's some things you can't control. You can't control geography. You can't control market size. You can't control travel. Like there's a lot of crap that you got to live with.
Yep.
And the rest of it is the controllables. I mean, say what you will. I mean, bless his heart, Mackenzie Weegar got a building done in 11 days.
It's amazing. Quite honestly. 100
Mackenzie Weegar and the fine, and
does it in 11.
Mackenzie Weegar and the fine behind the scenes folks of the city of Calgary. Those are the two heroes.
Those are the heroes, folks. Those are the heroes.
But it's you've been in that building. I mean, folks, if you've been in the Saddle Dome, we love the Saddle Dome. It's old. Like that's not meant to be disparaging. It's just a fact. It's an old building. The footprint of the building. I mean, every time someone comes up to me and says, geez, why don't they just renovate the building? The footprint of the building is a footprint of a building from 1983. And it's essentially a clown car of amenities crammed into closets and available space. And like, basically there's no wasted space because they have things on top of things on top of things. So,
but you've seen it. Those are add-ons. Like they created the extra space underneath seats became storage because of necessity.
Yeah, and then sort of became also it becomes secondary locker rooms. Like, the Calgary Wranglers are using the Flames room because they don't have their own room, which is, granted,
it's not you don't leave the American League, right?
You don't build a building. Well, that's what it's in 1983. When the best architects at the time are sitting down and going, let's build this thing to last the next 20 years. I don't think at any point they go, what we're going to have? We're going to have a hockey team with more than 2 coaches, and we're going to have a spa in there because the guys are going to get beaten up and we need to make sure they don't die. And we're going to have medical, and we're going to have training rooms, and we're going to have video, and we're going to have 2 more teams and a lacrosse team.
Dude, I don't mean to correct you. I do it, but I don't mean to. But the actual plans of that building?
Oh, that would have been 80 and 81.
It would have been 79. It would have been before Empire Strikes Back comes out.
I think they probably did the last pieces in 80, but yeah, 79, 80.
Drawings, the main drawings, like it took a while, right?
Yeah, so I have a copy. Some lovely person sent me a copy of the final architectural renderings. I think the date I see on there is 1982.
Sure.
So that's when everything was done, when they signed off and everything and they sealed it, 82. So still like that's 41 years ago.
Right.
And, I just completed, I had a long chat with Cliff Fletcher, David Poyle. We started talking about how the things were back when they started off in Atlanta, where it was like 2 or 3 guys working out of an Atco trailer outside the Omni because the building wasn't ready yet. And they had, it was a revelation in the National Hockey League when they added an assistant coach. It was boom Jeffreyon and some trainers. And then like, holy cow, it was seen as heresy when they hired an assistant coach, and then everyone hired an assistant coach. Yeah. And so this arms race of every team has, 3 coaches and a video coach and multiple goalie coaches and this, that, and the other thing. And now you're seeing more and more teams, San Jose, Edmonton, Toronto, so on, with their farm team either in the same building or really, really close. I mean, no one anticipated that in 1981, 82. So, no one's saying boo about the quality of the design for the time, but it obviously ain't 1982 anymore. And if you compare a car built in 82 to a car built now, it's like they're hardly built for the same purpose.
Right.
And that's the same thing with the building. So
that's exactly it. So
you're trying to attract 2022 players with a 19, like, it's like saying, thank you for signing with the Calgary Flames. Here's your brand new 1982 Cadillac. I mean,
no, that's exactly what it's saying. So let's stay in order, because I'm coming back to this point because it's a very astute point, and it's one that I think is really important. But before I get there, 2 other things that I thought were important. One, the question about Brad Treliving. I didn't think he'd come back. Didn't think it was on the table, but it's answered, right? It's out. It's done. The other one was because Mitch Love, Ryan Huska, they've got some really excellent internal candidates.
Yeah.
GM's going to hire their coach.
Yeah.
Those were really important for me to hear.
And GM and the GM's going to Maloney's hiring the GM. GM's hiring the coach. Coach is determining their coaching staff.
Yep.
So it's not like
as it should be.
Yeah, it's not like anyone's necessarily saddled with anyone else. It's everyone's going to get to make their own decisions, at least based on what we got told today.
Yeah. Would you? I know that some things are out there and have been out there for a while, and some things people buy into, some things don't buy into. Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick talk a lot about external companies, headhunting companies. Companies that are specifically, hired to find candidates and things like that. Or there's the traditional way. Don Maloney goes and picks up resumes and go. Are you predispositioned to one method or another?
Not especially. I think you end up getting a lot of the same people both ways. I think, what worked with granted, I mean, Brian Burke has probably like a network of contacts in the league, second to few in the sport. And so when they hired Brad Treliving, and that hire turned out reasonably well, when they hired Brad Treliving, they interviewed one guy, Brad Treliving, but it was a product of, probably I'd say better part of 3 or 4 months of Burke during the course of his everyday affairs and is doing the interim GM job, talking to people saying, who's the next guy? Who's up and coming? Who should we get? If you were me, who'd you hire? Yep. And making a list. And the name that came up most frequently was Brad Treliving. And Don Maloney has been around hockey almost as long as Brian Burke. Not quite, but I'd say he'd also have a pretty good Rolodex. I am fascinated based on they travel in similar circles, but also, we had Don Maloney spending, all that time out in the desert. I am just fascinated to see what the list of candidates will end up being. Because, I don't imagine that Maloney will only interview one person, but that's going to be a very interesting list of names, because I think it'll give us some insight into, okay, what do the Flames see as priorities? What do they see as what they want to do? And the fascinating thing to me is, especially, we on the site we did, Robert Munich did a piece on Craig Conroy's candidacy, and I did one on Brad Pascal. Yeah. Brad Pascal and Craig Conroy are great candidates. I'd say equally good candidates. They're both really good at different things. And I think that's the fascinating part, because, you can have, here's a name I threw up in the mailbag was Alexandra Mandrycky. In Seattle. She's the AGM. She came out of, she and AC Newman created AC Newman. It wasn't AC. But yeah, she was one of the co-creators of War on Ice. She was, in analytics for the Wild for a long time. Then she went into Seattle, where she's, I believe, in her second year as AGM, or second season, but she was hired early. She was like their first hockey ops hire. So basically third season. Yeah. And so she's absolutely a whiz, and not only at analytics, but communicating and integrating analytics. That's a good thing. Is she, does she have the pro hockey experience that, say, Craig Conroy has? No, but Craig Conroy also has probably more scouting experience in terms of touching a bunch of different parts of the organization, running the farm team for a little bit, helping out with pro scouting, helping out with amateur scouting. And Brad Pascal's basically run a team within a team. He's the person at the head of their development team. And if you look at sort of some of the things they've done, putting, good people to have success, not only as players, but as coaches in the National Hockey League, they've been really good at finding smart people and moving them up. Heck, they had some trainers, I believe, from Stockton move up to the NHL roster. And so if you're able to do that kind of translational work in terms of bringing people in, I mean, Conroy's group brings people into the organization, and Pascal's group turns them into NHLers. I don't know if you can say that any one piece of that is more important than the other one, but that is to say, there's going to be so many different, really cool candidates with so many just disparate types of expertise. And it's going to be really interesting to see, based on who they hire, what they feel is the thing they need to emphasize organizationally more than other pieces, because it's like if you hire a head coach who in their presentation just talks about their power play for 1,000 years, that the organization feels special teams is that important. And so, what's it going to look like? It's exciting because we haven't had this level of uncertainty in the organization on the hockey ops side, and to a certain extent a little bit of uncertainty based on free agency coming up in a year. On the roster side, we haven't had this kind of flux in probably 2 decades. But Don Maloney repeatedly said he's excited, and it's an exciting time. And I don't think he's wrong. I think there is sort of some palpable excitement around the club, because the weird questions, like the big looming questions, the building, the GM, the coach, they're answered, they're dealt with, and now it's a matter of figuring out what it looks like.
Whoa, slow down, cowboy. The building isn't answered.
We'll see.
Okay. You sound more optimistic than I do. I just, and my pessimism has nothing to do with hockey or the deal itself. It's just politics. I don't trust politics.
Oh, come on. You don't like having 3 elections held in this area around the same thing over and over again?
I'm getting used to it. Yeah, I'm getting used to it, right? Like, I'm getting used to it. One last thing on Maloney, and then I want to go back to the point you were making a little while ago. There's no sense of this is a rebuild, this is a reload, that they feel they've underachieved, and that they've got young players to integrate. There's no doubt about it, but I didn't get the sense from him that this was about tearing it down and starting from the studs.
No, and looking at the math, I mean, I think if everyone on one way is brought back, I was looking at Cap Friendly the other day. If everyone on a one way is brought back, they have 20 players signed, and their cap hit would be about 83.3 on a cap ceiling of 83.5. So obviously, they're probably, I don't think it's unfair to say they probably bury Kevin Rooney's deal in the American League just for the cap reasons. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they try to shed, I'd say 3-4 million of existing cap, and easiest way to do that is you bring up kids. You make a trade or two, and you bring up kids. And I think, we've talked about, Walker Duehr is going to be a full-time NHLer next year. He's making $50,000 more than league minimum, which is just an incredible piece of work by everybody involved. Even the player, I mean, that's a good deal. But I think, they've had some opportunities for these fresh faces. So I think they have, it's going to be a fascinating few months just to see who stays, who goes, and what holes they have for kids to fill. Because the last few seasons, I mean, with 1 or 2 exceptions, we basically, if you mapped out the roster on the first day of training camp, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, you would have had it all right.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to think Vladar's out, right? That they'll move Vladar to give Wolf space. If they can, I'm assuming they can find him a home. It's easy for me to say.
You think so? I mean, he's one of those guys that, he's only played he's played basically 2 full NHL seasons, and he hasn't played a ton. And I think if you're whoever's the GM in however long, like at the draft, you're trying to sell him on players or on teams. He's 25-ish.
Yep.
And he's played not a ton of hockey. And I think you can basically just point to, it's like, oh, Dan Vladar didn't work. Look at the team. Not a lot of stuff worked. So you can't really blame that on him. And he's still a super young goaltender with a really good attitude and a lot of promise. And he, his mobility throughout the league will have nothing to do with his play. It just, he has the bad fortune. We always talk about all these promising young goaltenders that had the bad fortune of playing behind Mika Kiprasov. He has the unfortunate timing of being in front of Dustin Wolf at a time where Dustin Wolf has nothing left to achieve at the American League level, save for perhaps a championship.
That's it. And I'm, by the way, and we don't even have to talk about it, but I'm going after a Group 6 free agent and offering him a 1-year, one-way league minimum, because I don't think he'll get it anywhere else.
Maybe. I mean, there's, assuming you're talking
Phillips, but
assuming you're talking, I was assuming you're talking about Matt Phillips and not like someone else.
I can't let it go, Ryan. I just can't let it go.
Honestly, he's from Calgary. Like we always talk about this. This will be a terrible approximation, and I apologize for making it. We talk about wanting to do the best for someone like Michael Backlund, who's been so good in this community and for this team. I think to a certain extent, you also want to do it for your prospects, where say what you will about what they ended up getting or not getting for him. The Flames gave Yusuf Alamaki a chance to play regular minutes by throwing on waivers. They had the cap space. They could have stashed him. They didn't do it. They could have. I don't think it would have been tenable to carry 2 extra defensemen with Mackey and Malamaki both being extra pieces. It would have been fair to them, and in their they didn't do that. They gave him a chance to go somewhere and play. And so I think whenever the Wranglers playoff run is over, whoever's the GM at that point, sit down, have a meal with him, say, what do you want to do? What are you thinking? And then if he wants to go, you say, great, thank you. We appreciate your contributions. And if there's any part of them, it's like, I don't know, who's coaching this year? I think that's a conversation you have. And, I don't think throwing a 1-year leagueman deal would be bad for anybody, but it's just a question of where does he want to be and what does he want to have the opportunity to do? Because, he's had so much success that I think to a certain extent, he's earned the right to write his own ticket. I'm still not fully convinced he's an NHLer, but I think he's earned the right to play his way out of the NHL at this point.
Yeah, and then that's a good way of putting it. Back to your Cadillac comparison, and I'm not 100% sure that I'm exactly talking about the same thing, but one of the things that is beginning to jump out at me, and I was watching that game last night, that Boston-Florida game. It's hard to watch 19 in white. It just is, because woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? Woulda, shoulda, coulda. Building might have helped. Certainly can't match Florida on taxes. We know that. Maybe making him the captain would have helped. Who knows? But at some point, hockey, the NHL, the Flames, we got to have a conversation now. This is beginning to feel a little bit like the old Canadian equalization problem. That was $1. That was a financial thing, and the league had to step in. I'm beginning to worry that, as much as I hate to say it because I never bought into it, so you're not allowed to draft American kids Coronado, we're going to get him for what? I look at Winnipeg. Winnipeg's going to be really interesting because if they blow that up, there's a couple of those kids they brought from Atlanta with them. They drafted a lot of those kids. Hellebuck's a really good goaltender, and he doesn't want to go through a rebuild. I'm just a little bit worried that we might be living in an era of hockey in this country that's making it difficult for us, these teams, to keep star players.
I'll say this. Why players want to play in Toronto? Because they've got a good team. Like they have, it's a market where hockey matters, and you either love or hate the attention, but you know what to expect. The team's very good. As loath as we are to praise the Leafs in this market or any other Canadian market, if you look on paper, the team they built, it's underachieved in the playoffs, but it's a powerhouse regular season team, a juggernaut, to steal a Chris Johnsonism. And they've managed to, Mark Giordano could have gotten a lot more money anywhere else. He took pennies on the dollar to play in Toronto because he wanted a chance to win.
No doubt.
And if you can, I think the challenge is you got to build it up. You got to, make these organizations, these cities. Calgary is a fantastic city. You and I are unabashedly pro Calgary.
100%.
And, it's one of the more unique markets in the country. And I think, you see the alumni who stick around here, one of the most active alumni groups in the entire NHL.
Biggest and the most active, for sure.
Yeah. They don't stick around because, it's got mountains. They stick around for the whole package. I just think the challenge is, how do you build a program? Toronto has a program. Edmonton has a program. And it really helps that you have a McDavid or a Draisaitl or an Austin Matthews or a Marner to build it around. But okay, I think if you want it, for better or for worse, those teams in those markets have identified their aces and locked them in long term, paid them handsomely, and built around them. And the degree to which they can build around them determines how far they go in the postseason. But that's the way it goes. We had that here where for a few years, in the aughts, before Mika Kiprusoff and Jerome McGinley got a little on in years, the Flames brought in some fairly significant names in free agency because you could say, the idea of, hey, you want to come into Calgary and play with Jerome McGinley? The answer for most people is, ooh, that sounds kind of cool. What kind of money are you offering? The money helps, but the having that opportunity to dangle by players is a thing that gets people's attention. And I think right now they're sort of in a state of flux where do you want to come to Calgary and play with X? Who's the X in that situation? Because once you figure out who the X is, then I think you can start really building.
Except that you are having agents openly talk about the fact that it's the 7 Canadian markets that are at the top, that are put on the no trade lists for players.
Yeah.
You had Oliver Ekman-Larsson's agent, when he got traded to Vancouver, went on Vancouver radio and said players don't want to play in Canada because the pressure is too much. Those are the things that I'm talking about, right? I agree with you. You build a program. Listen, you get Connor McDavid, you're going to come play with Connor McDavid. No problem. But
some guys love pressure, though. I mean, do you think Jerome McGinley shirked away from pressure? Some guys are just wired that way. Some guys love the pressure.
But Jerome got to a point, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but Jerome got to a point where enough, I want to go win, right? And that's to your point. You got to build the program. That's job number one. Build the program, and then we can have the conversation. But last year, the Flames had tops in the Pacific Division, won a banner, got to the second round, didn't go well. Yeah. Fans love it.
And
two players walked away.
I bet you if you put some truth serum into Brad Treliving, the plan was, you re-up Gaudreau, you re-up Tkachuk, and then you go, okay, how do you make things work around them for the cap and from play style perspective? And then they got dealt a very significant curveball. Granted, a curveball that contractually was somewhat of their own making. They put themselves in a situation for that to happen, but they had a plan that when you walk you through it, it made some sense.
But if you were playing in Calgary next, okay, let's just say they built that building, right? When they announced it, those two players would have played in that building. They would have played in whatever Calgary next became. So they would have been in a new building with a new facility. If you had made Tkachuk the captain, these are what's ifs and woulds and coulds and all of those sort of things. I am just saying, Ryan, as somebody who lived through the Canadian equalization times, it's beginning to feel a little bit like that in some cases. Now, it's not financial from the standpoint of the dollar anymore because it's an even playing field. And to your point, build a program. But I'm going to be fascinated to see what happens in Winnipeg now. I'm really going to be fascinated to see what happens in Winnipeg. And, the new building here is going to be, what it's like when you can start bringing guys through a state-of-the-art building and they see technology and they see that stuff. It's huge. And that's part of the problem here. But you need to start addressing some of that too. You want to be a destination that players want to come and stay. And I'm beginning to feel like that might be an issue in Canada right now. Not for everybody and not for everyone, but I think it's worth noting.
And we're also in a position now where, like, okay, if you look at the 7 Canadian teams, I mean, if you look at the rosters and look at the trajectories, Toronto has a fighting chance to win something. Edmonton has a fighting chance to win something. Yes. Vancouver is in flux. Calgary's in flux. Winnipeg's in flux. Ottawa's in flux. Montreal's in flux. Yeah. So 5 out of 7 markets are in various stages of
rebuilding or reloading or whatever,
or at the very least soul searching in terms of you have 5 out of 7 in where do we go from here, and Toronto and Edmonton are capped out. So if let's just say you are a Canadian, you are a player. If you're an American player and you're sitting down, or basically a player from anywhere, if you're sitting down and making your no move, Edmonton, probably Edmonton and Toronto can't afford you, and the other 5 teams, you don't really know what they're doing quite yet. So in a year, maybe, Vancouver's further down the road, maybe Calgary's further down the road, and you sort of have a sense of what they want to do. Yep. But like for Ottawa, like, okay, you're going to have new ownership. Great. It's still Ottawa. I love Ottawa, but it's still Ottawa.
You might have Snoop Dogg as your owner. That may be
I don't know if I like that.
You might be the whole game changer right there.
Now, I just watch Ryan Reynolds get Snoop Dogg to join his consortium.
I don't know what's going on there. I want to talk about the Wranglers before I let you go, but before I do that, and we glossed over it, we've touched on it, we've come and anything that you want to point out. We're almost a week now from the announcement that that there's a deal in place in principle, pending funding post-election. You've been sorting through it. I think we're beginning to learn different details and everything of it. Here's I'll just give you what I'm thinking, and then you take it wherever you want. I find that a lot of people are okay with the vision of it. Like this is not the same deal. You and I were talking about this is not. So comparing the one that walked away or whatever to this one, that's not the same deal. It's not the same plan.
No, like what?
Well, what they're missing right now, Ryan, to me, is they need somebody out in the community as a champion. There's no Ken King making the rounds. There's nobody, you know what I mean? There's nobody who's hosting a podcast or doing a radio show or a television show and going, we need this Calgary and this is why. And it's right now, I think it's getting beat up in a lot of places because there is nobody defending it. And I would like to see, I'd like to see that. I think, you know, I don't get a vote in this, but you know, if it's not John, go ahead.
If we're being clear here, on May 29th, we all get a vote on it to a certain
extent. But you gotta get out and talk about it, right? You are allowing one side of this narrative to be taken over.
Once we get past the election, I think the uncertainty will be sort of taken out of it a bit, and I think maybe certain bodies will be a little bit more, will be less reticent to really go out on a limb for it. But I mean, you know, it's
the plan I have. This is my plan. If I was Notley, this is what I'd do today. I would say, not only am I going to build that arena, I'm going to build a new stadium. That's my plan today. That's what I would do. You one up the other side. Don't tell me that you don't know what the deal is. It's not transparent. You want to take a look at it. No. You come up and say, I see your arena and I raise you a football stadium. That's how I would address this.
I mean, I don't hate the deal in principle. Looking at the shape of it, I wrote a lengthy breakdown of the site. They included stuff that really needed to be included. I think a lot of John Bean actually touched on this when he was speaking at the press conference. You know, if your idea for a public gathering space is let's just shut down a road, that's not a much of a plan. And if the idea, because like the big headache with Stampede Park, and we all love Stampede Park, the biggest pain in the ass is parking and getting in and getting out. And, anytime you say, hey, do you want to come to a Wranglers game or you want to go to a Roughnecks game or a Flames game? The first reaction from whoever you're talking to is, are you going to drive? Should I, where are we going to park?
100%.
And so that was something that came up a lot during, behind the scenes, during the last iteration. The biggest exposure the city had was the transportation and event management plan. And so now it's like, okay, the things you need to do to make it so that people can actually go to this place, enjoy this place, and get the hell out in any kind of any kind of velocity, they're in place now. And they have granted, I need to see better estimates than just a line item with $270 million. There's been reports, the CBC, I believe Jason Markosoff did a column a couple days ago that said, he was talked to someone close to the project, and they said could be about $100 million just for that 4-lane underpass below the CPR line on 6th. That sounds about right. So you're looking at, okay, $100 million for that, and then like $100 and some million for 17th and for 15th and for the south entrance of Stampede Park. So all those things make sense, and including them makes sense, and having everything up front makes sense, because that way on the back end of this thing, it doesn't sprawl, you don't get surprises. But at the same time, I mean, if this is the way I see this happening, and I'm in no way a prognosticator of things. I'm right as often as I'm wrong. That's why I don't play the stock market at all. But the way I could sort of see this happening is, whoever wins the provincial election, even if it's, a new government, the city's main thing that they've been hat in hand for with the province is we need money to fix downtown. And this by no means is a magic bullet. There's sundry kinds of societal problems they need to deal with. But if the idea is the province has X dollars to give to Calgary for infrastructure for the downtown area, and this is how the city wants to spend it, okay, cool. I mean, I think that's as much. I think if you're going to blame anyone for the parts you don't like about the deal, I think, it lives and dies with the city, because the city's the one. This is the whole sales pitch for Stampede Park redevelopment was, let's put cool shit downtown and people actually want to go downtown. And the second part of that is you need to do the infrastructure upgrades so that people can get to and from the cool shit without losing their minds. And we don't have that yet. And it wasn't in the last deal. And so it's explicitly in this deal. That's why the numbers are big and scary and ugly. And that's why the level of public money is where it is. So if you like it or you don't, I mean, this is what they would need to probably spend to make that area actually work as intended.
So you have just proven my point. So if I was you, I would call John and go, I'm happy to do this. I will go on. I will say exactly what I just said, and I will say that.
I need to see the lease before I say I like this deal or not, though. I need to see the lease. I need to see the land swaps.
Fine, but you don't have anybody out right now on the one side saying what you just said. And I've had a lot of people say it to me. I've had a lot of people say this is not the arena deal. You're right. This is a much better. Let's all these other things. The platform.
You got to admit though. You got to admit though.
All of those things are going to be better off because
I have many friends on city council. I cringed when I hear everyone singing from the same songbook because we heard the exact same phrase from like a dozen people more than just an event center, which is great. It's more than just an event center. But if the idea is you're hanging your hat on, here's a building and here's some supporting infrastructure, you got to kind of walk us through. No, you can't just say more than just an event center. I need my handheld and I need you to walk me through.
But who's walking? Who's holding your hand? Nobody.
Right now, nobody.
Nobody. You need a hand holder. Not you, but we. We need a hand holder.
The royal you.
Yes, the royal woo. You. Woo. Us. Wranglers up 2-0 on Abbotsford. It's been a feisty. They don't like each other, which makes for much better, more entertaining hockey.
And of course, game one villain, the notorious Matthew Phillips, ejected for spearing a man in the groin in first period of game one, scores the overtime winner in game two. That's just fun.
Right.
Hockey's fun.
Right. Little disappointed in the crowd on Friday.
I think it's going to build. I mean,
I do too. But I think a lot of us thought that Friday might. We'll get to the.
I think the thing that worked against them was the weather. It was such a gorgeous night out that if it was patio weather, it's one of the first great patio weekends of the year.
Cleaning weather.
Yeah, and you're asking people, hey, do that on Sunday when there's no games.
I'm sorry.
You're asking people like, hey, come on inside where it's nice and cool and refreshing. Actually, I'm not tired of the heat yet. I'm willing to hang outside with the heat. I have a feeling that as this thing goes along, I mean, I think their announced attendance in the first game was 5,600. Second game was 8,200.
Okay.
I have a feeling it's going to keep growing. I wouldn't be shocked to see 10,000.
That's the Hitman model, right? The Hitman of the third round is when they get into the second or into the 10,000s. And then once it gets into those championship games, now it's a hard ticket to get. I think it's exactly going to follow. But it's a good point too, because it was really a nice weekend too, right?
Yeah, this is, in the first weekend where you don't feel like you're being threatened with snow at any moment. So, I mean, you're going to, I think that's always the challenge of the NHL. It's the NHL. You never know if it could be back in the playoffs again. So playoff tickets are hard to come by and hard to part with. But, for something that's less established, I think they're really encouraged by the thing so far. The prices, I think I sat lower bowl on Friday for $40. So if you're on the fence about going to a game, they're right now. Their seating structure, their payment structure is based on age, not where you sit. So adults, I think, were $40 plus fees. I think lower bowl or the kids and seniors or kids and students were like 25 or something like that. I'm not pulling the numbers completely out of thin air. These do resemble reality somewhat.
Oh no, they're reality. They're reality.
So, yeah, if you get a chance to go, game 3 for the Wranglers, they're in Abbotsford on Wednesday night, and coincidentally, the other series in that bracket, Coachella Valley and the Colorado Eagles, also Wednesday night. So potentially, we could have both series over by the end of Wednesday.
I thought Coachella didn't they split?
They had another game. It's up. They played. Yeah, they played Sunday. They played Sunday too. So they're up. Okay. I believe Colorado's up 2-1.
Okay. So it could, So we could be moving rather quickly into that next series.
I'm not sure how if they're gonna go straight into the next one or if they give them a gap or something. The AHL playoff schedules are very weekend oriented and kind of weird,
as it should be. Is there anything on FlamesNation these days, or did you guys just board it up and shutter it because there's like nothing to talk
about? So we'll have more Wranglers, more prospects. We're gonna start getting into GM candidates, coaching candidates. This time next week, I believe. Yeah, next Wednesday night or next Monday night rather is the fantastic draft lottery. And after the draft lottery, we know where the Flames are picking.
Yeah,
we'll start unveiling some prospect profiles for the draft. So, it's this feels like it's gonna be like a lot like last summer, where we're like, everyone who has a partner who isn't a big sports fan was going, "Don't worry, honey. Next week it'll quiet down."
Oh,
I feel like I've been telling my fiance, "Don't worry, honey. It's gonna quiet down," since I don't even want to think about how long. But it's the nature of the beast, right?
It is the nature of the beast. That's why we like it. That's why we do it. Appreciate this, sir. Again, hopefully we'll have something to talk about next Monday.
Who knows? Sure. They're running out of deals to make and people to fire. So at this point, they're going to start hiring people. Or
I'll tell you what,
making deals.
If you're looking for a story idea, here's a freebie for you, because that's what managing editors are always doing, looking for a free story. Do a deep dive on Carla McLeod as a candidate for a coach.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
You sports and a lot
but
of
what she's done with Chechia, and it's been done all in the open, and it does check so many of the boxes of the struggles here. Now, having said that, I was at an event in which she was asked a specific question whether or not she wanted to coach the NHL, and she said no, she'd rather coach the highest level of women's hockey. Having said all of that, I still would go back. If we're truly going to be open and everybody's on the table, I think she's done one of the best coaching jobs that I've seen in a long time.
And you know what? If you can get her, what I would do is have her sit in the meetings. Just say, hey, even if you don't want to work for us, we'll pay you a fee as a consultant. Tell us who we should get. Tell us, if you're not hiring people, there's a lot of times where teams interview people they might not be able to hire just to get some free opinions.
Yep. You have talked about that since day one, sir. So there's a freebie for you. You're welcome.
Merci.
After being a pain in your ass last Tuesday while you're trying to work, the least I could do is do something to make you productive.
Rob, at this point in our lives, if you're not a pain in someone's ass, you're not trying hard enough. So, we're all trying to be a pain.
I'm trying very, very hard. Thank you, sir. We will talk to you next week.
See ya.
There you go. Ryan Pike, everybody. Managing editor of Flames Nation, brought to you by Ski Sellers Snowboard, skisellersnowboard.com. 3 locations in Calgary, McLeod Trail by Chinook Center, 17th Avenue Southwest, just off of 14th Street, Bow Ridge Road Northwest. You ever do your own podcast and your phone is blowing up while you're doing it? You just can't wait to get off the air because you never know what gems you're going to have. I'm having that day. I'm very curious to see when this podcast ends. Exactly what kind of trouble I find myself in. It's been a busy day. Thank you. I want to take this moment to thank Jack and Mark and Gav, our outstanding producers, because we had a little bit of an issue today, and they worked and they worked and they worked till they got it fixed. And I really, really do appreciate that. Final mile for you. Just a couple thoughts before we go. The election's on. You vote, please vote. I think that's critical. But I think you have, at least I feel you have the right to say, I want to be talked to like a voter, not a marketer. I don't want to be marketed to. I want somebody to talk to me as a voter. We are subject to marketing campaigns, and I hate this. True leadership, and I do feel like this is one of my topics. This is the top. I'm not an expert in it, but I'm a lifelong learner in it. I have worked for incredible leaders. I have had incredible mentors. I've worked for really bad leaders, and I've had some people that just should not be given the keys to anything. So I've seen it from all sides. True leadership is not telling you what you want to hear. It's telling you what you need to hear. And I'm sorry. I don't care which party you are. I don't care what candidate you are. I am so sick and tired of you starting every conversation with, well, they. I don't care about they. Tell me about you. Tell me what you're going to do. I don't give a tinker's damn what has been done. I'm not happy. I'm not a fan of this government. I've said it before. I'm a lifelong conservative voter, but with, social, more democratic social vibes. I don't feel like I don't feel like I have a party anymore. I really don't. Oh, but Rob, we'll do that. No. Tell me what you're going to do. because it's greater good. It's not individual need. I don't get everything this election. You don't get everything you want this election. But tell me how you're going to lead. Tell me what I need to hear. Don't tell me what I want to hear. And I think that that's the demand we have to start putting on people, especially in the next month. Not the least bit interested in what the other guy's doing. Tell me what you're going to do. And maybe we can make a little bit of change. Two guys I want to talk about before we go. Daryl Sutter. Big fan of Daryl Sutter as a human being. Big fan of him as a coach. I'm empathetic. I feel like you get to a point where the game changes, business changes, whatever, and we try, but we have to hold true to our ideals. I don't think Daryl Sutter did a single thing this year that he didn't in his heart of heart believes would lead to success. I really don't. Never have. He's a harsh, hard taskmaster. He expects from you what he expects from himself. And if you talk to his former players, some love him, some hate him. But the ones that love him because they brought the best out of him. And I like him. I always have. Didn't agree with decisions he made this year. Fully understand what happened today. Fully get it. Daryl Sutter's next stop is the Hockey Hall of Fame. He's a bona fide Hall of Famer as far as I'm concerned. 2-time Stanley Cup winner. You look at his coaching record, what he was able to do in the prime, just never missed the playoffs, made teams better, made players better. You heard Jerome McGinley this past weekend. I think I believe it was Wes or somebody talked to him and said the best coaches he ever played for, Mike Keenan and Daryl Sutter. I think he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. I know there's all kinds of other people that, different parties and interests champion, but Daryl Sutter's a Hall of Famer as far as I'm concerned, and I expect to see him there as a builder. I want to just thank him, and I want to thank Chris. My hope is that in some crazy way, Chris Sutter is allowed and stays involved with the team. I don't think it will work that way, but I know his brother Brett, his beloved brother Brett, is still the captain of the Wranglers, and he'll have a vested interest there. But to see Chris in this second go round in Calgary, and the smiles that he puts on people's faces, and the role model that he is for a lot of kids that I work with and a lot of people in the community, he deserves a ton of credit, and I hope he gets that credit. I hope there's always going to be a place for him. But I just wanted to thank both of those guys. It's a heartless business. It's, for some people, it's TV and it's drama, and there's good guys and there's bad guys. I like Daryl, always have. He's always been good to me. He is what he is. He's a hard-ass coach that demands a lot and has had success in this league. It's just not that league anymore. It's just not that league. We will continue the hockey talk this week. Peter Marr on Wednesday, Eric Dahachuk on Friday. Also going to weave in some other guests around that. Barn Burner is must watch this week. I don't know if you saw it today. It's worth going back and listening to the podcast. Frank Seravalli was on it, but I think Rhett and Boomer really have brought some interesting insight to this conversation. And of course, the Flames Nation, flamesnation.ca. We just had Ryan Pike on, the managing editor. Tons and tons and tons of material for you. Crazy day all the way around. Thanks for being patient with me. Thanks for being patient all the way around, and all the way around. And the election's underway all the way around. Anyway, we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Have a great day, everybody.
When there's two sides to every coin, then there's a conversation you can join. But I'm an old dog and there's new tricks, and some of my opinions you just can't fix. 'Cause I'm an old man yelling at the sky. I'ma shake my fist at the clouds and cry. Get off my lawn, you snowflake, before I have